And thank you guys so much for joining us here today on our Friday weekly webinar. Today, we will be discussing legal permanent residence, reentry permits, and COVID. So how to preserve your residency, especially during these times. I'm joined today by our awesome managing attorney, Ruby Powers. She's going to go ahead and go in a little bit more detail as to what this webinar will consist of, requirements, and all those tidbits that we're also eager to hear. So I'm going to go ahead
thank you guys so much for joining,
and let Attorney Powers take it away.
For joining us here today on.
All right. So many of you may know me already. You might be our client or you've heard of us before, but the firm is 12 years old. I've been licensed 13 years. I ran my law firm from Dubai. So those watching, you might be expats and you haven't been able to come back into the US because of COVID or what have you. I understand. I've lived abroad. I've lived in 5 other countries besides the United States. But I know how it can be very tricky to plan your international trips, and then COVID hit. I also do a lot of writing and reading and speaking on law practice management and advocacy, and so just wanted to give this presentation because we've seen a lot of consultations on this. We've been working with our existing clients. And so it looks like it's a hot topic, and it's been a concern. And even though we're about 13 months into the pandemic hitting the U.S., we're still people haven't been able to get back into the United States, and so it's still a topic of concern. Plus, not only those who haven't been able to get into the country, there's a lot of those who are legal permanent residents that are getting assigned abroad. And so that's the other reason why we wanted to have this conversation. So we're going to go over all of these things in about 30 minutes, but we just want to say that you can still have a consultation. This doesn't sort of replace a legal consultation, but hopefully we're getting you in a better place. And you can always reach us at 713-589-2085, and you'll have our information available for more specific one-on-one consultation via Zoom or phone. All right, so what is a legal permanent resident? What's the difference between citizen and legal permanent resident? Abandoning green card, preserving the green card, reentry permits, and then just issues during COVID. So we'll get started. Okay, so I think many of you who are on this are either the expat who's trying to preserve your residency, or you're about the soon-to-be expat and you're getting assigned. Lots of the folks that I talk to who are getting assigned abroad, like they generally only know maybe 1 or 2 months. And it's like, you're trying to sell your house, you're trying to move your kids out of school, and it's just insane. I have some neighbors even in this situation. And then but then, what about my green card? Yeah, I need to take care of that. And so, there's a lot going on all at the same time. And, we can help take a lot of this stress and guessing out by helping you out through this journey. So legal permanent resident, which we pretty much all know, it's that middle place before you become a citizen, and you can get the legal permanent residency through employment or through family, also through asylum, things like that. And generally the card is good for 10 years unless you have the conditional green card. But, we know that they're not the same rights as a citizen. And a citizen, it doesn't matter where you live. Once you become a U.S. citizen, you don't have to tell USCIS where you are anymore. And you can register to vote. You still have the tax implications. But you're not having this battle between you telling USCIS that you're maintaining residency and telling IRS if you're abroad that I'm not in the US like 330 days out of the year, and that whole potential conflict. So on the legal permanent resident, you have to maintain your residency. We generally say don't be out of the US for more than 6 months at a time, but definitely don't be out for more than 1 full year. And there are ways to solve those with reentry permits, but it still can have an impact on your reentry and for naturalization when you can apply. So, when you're a green card holder, a legal permanent resident, you're still not a U.S. citizen. So you still have to make sure your foreign passport is valid. obviously, and be able and your legal permanent residency card is valid on the face, or you have an I-751 receipt that's still showing validity period. And you could lose your legal permanent residency for different reasons: abandonment, for being outside too long, which is really what the crux of why we're talking about this, but also if you commit certain crimes or there's a conviction of certain crimes. And we already know you're not eligible to vote, and but you're legal permanent resident, you still have tax obligations. Okay, so let's start talking about the crux of it, which is abandon a legal permanent resident occurs when they demonstrate their intent is to no longer reside in the U.S. So how does someone know all these things? Well, first of all, the most obvious one is your physical. Where are you physically? If you're gone too long, then they're going to start thinking, well, you don't really want to be here in the United States. You're probably trying to abandon. But there's lots of other things that you can show what's going on in your intent, which really intent is sort of like what's in your head. And it's through how your taxes. Do you maintain your taxes, and what do you say on them? Do you say you've been out for a long time? Are you a non-resident? What do you say? And so that's where, a CPA who does international tax, as well as an immigration attorney who's experienced with expats, is really important. Do you have a bank account? Do you have a check credit card? Do you keep everything active? Do you have a house? Now, it's expensive to keep a house in the United States if you're going to be gone, but maybe you have, I don't know, you need to at least have a US address. And there's lots of different ways. You could either have like a friend or family member receive your mail, or you could get like a UPS address or something like that. There's also those expat type of situations where someone, it's not just for expats, but it's sort of, I think of it from that perspective, where you can get a service to open your mails. They can tell you which ones you have. You can open, yes, no, open, scan, trash, whatever. And, that would have been really nice to have when I was in Dubai. I think I had my assistant with my law firm open my mail because we had rented our house out for while we were gone. And so anyway, what can you do? So factors in determining abandonment is the length of absence, the purpose of the travel. If you're just going abroad because you have to take care of a sick relative, or you have to, someone passed away and you have to close down their estate, or, I don't know there's lots of different reasons, or you're on expat assignment and so sending you, abroad, but it's a short-term thing. But you continuing your ties and your return is really critical. So we generally say definitely have an address in the US, definitely pay taxes, and keep a healthy, like a bank account and credit cards, so that if you needed to show that. But it's also helpful because when you're trying to reestablish your life back, if you have the bank account and the credit card, then you can ease yourself back into the United States. So how can a legal permanent resident who expects to have prolonged absence avoid finding of abandonment? Well, I'm sort of thinking of two schools of thought. There's the one who hasn't left yet, so you can get the reentry permit, and there's the one who's already gone and is trying to get either back in soon, or is concerned about that interaction when they finally get to fly back into the US. So legal permanent residents who expect to be outside for longer than 1 year can avoid it by applying for the reentry permit, which was my first situation. It has to be filed in the US before you leave, and you have to do the biometrics if they require you to do it while you're in the US. So just scenario, you're about to go abroad, and you're like, you know what? I don't know. I'm going to be halfway around the world. I don't know if I'm going to be able to come back so easily. I've got 5 people in my family. It's going to get expensive for us all to be running back and forth. Plus with COVID, there might be a lot of those quarantining, stuff like that. How about just get the reentry permit? That's what I would suggest. Just to get yourself the peace of mind. And so the biggest point is you apply while you're in the US. And then if there are biometric requests, then you need to do them. We've seen people I'm getting ahead of myself, but let's just go ahead and say it. They've been reusing biometrics from prior applications. And then sometimes they've been making people do the biometrics. I've watched forums, and we filed many of these in last year. And there doesn't seem to be a consistency of when they reuse the biometrics and when they don't. So the best tip is if you're going to be gone for a while, you should just get the reentry permit to be safe, especially in times of COVID, because just because the US is getting lots of vaccinations and releasing some of the restrictions, not all, doesn't mean the rest of the world is. And you could get in a situation where you might have a harder time getting back into the US or leaving the US, leaving the country you're in. Now, the reentry permit can be used for admission back after an absence of longer than 1 year, as long as the applicant can show they have not taken steps to abandon residence. And you're like, oh no, I won't be gone for a whole year. Well, a whole lot of people were gone more than a year because of COVID, and things happen. I mean, I'm the collector of all the stories. I've heard so many different stories, but things that you don't intend happen, and then you get sick, somebody gets sick, you don't have money, you do this, and there's a COVID, who knows what. So just plan ahead. There's the peace of mind, because you don't want to have to abandon your green card. And please do put your questions in the Q&A, and we'll get to them as we can, or at the end. So reentry permits, they can cover you for absence of up to 2 years. It doesn't mean you want to be gone that whole time. It's really an insurance policy. It's an insurance policy that you can get yourself back in within under 2 years or under a year, but then you don't have to be stressed out about it. It also helps establish the legal permanent's intent at the time of initial departure to return back. So it's like you're calling your intent, what's in your mind, right? Hey, I'm planning to, I don't want to lose this thing. I'm going to protect it, and I'm going to come back. And so even if I can't control everything that happens. So it's not that complicated about eligibility. It's just usually gets complicated about timing, because usually we're filing them at the last minute when people are about to leave. But it's, valid green legal permanent residency card, or your conditional residency card physically in the US at the time of filing. I mean, we've had people fly in and we knew what day they were flying in, and we filed it on the day they were in the US. Like, it's gotten so tricky about the timing. Proposed absence is being temporary with intent to return. Now, filing abroad you have to be physically in the US to apply and ensure you have that US address. And you have to, so we've even had people fly back in to do the biometrics if they were such on a tight crunch. They were here to file the I-131, the reentry permit. They flew back to wherever they were living, and we rescheduled their biometrics so they could do them here in the country at a later date, maybe even at a different location. Now, that's why trying to reuse the biometrics can be so awesome, because then you don't have to come back for that. But we've been seeing, processing times take several months for these things. The other reason why you want to have an immigration attorney helping you during this is that they get a copy of your mail and you get a copy. So we can also receive your reentry permit and then have it sent to you directly with some type of mailing service. But that's really why the timing of it and the mail, and especially if you're not in the US, is really critical. So form, filing fee, supporting documents are not that much. It's really just in showing the intent, the purpose of the trip. And then you're, usually we show the ties to the US, and then it's only good for 2 years, like we said. And the reentry cannot be extended. You would just have to come back and file for a new one. I think we had some clients at one point who had gotten like no, that's not 6. I mean, I was thinking about 6 years. I think they had gotten like 3 of them. And, at some point, the question comes to hand, are you going to stay in the US at some point long enough to apply for naturalization, or are you, maybe it's not worth maintaining the green card if you're going to be abroad? And I know from being an expat, like, you go on like a 3-year assignment, and I've seen my friends in Dubai, for example, that turned into like almost 15, 20 years, or it could just be like, no, this isn't going to work out, and you come back in a year. But anyway, so sometimes when you go abroad, you don't know how long it's going to be. But sometimes you just have to decide, do you come back and you apply for naturalization and qualify, or do you maybe just not maintain it? But if the not maintaining it, it's not like you just want to abandon it. It gets a little complicated. You might want to just say, you know what, this isn't the right time. Maybe you're still married, you're married to a US citizen, or your company is willing to sponsor you to get it back, or maybe when your kids is going to turn 21, they're a US citizen. But basically, if you think you're going to abandon, it's better to do it with a clean slate, and go ahead and do the I-407, which is to surrender legal permanent resident status. As long as it's not for tax purposes, then it will not hinder you from ever getting a green card again. I've had a handful of clients, for whatever reason, renounce their surrender the legal permanent residency, and then later on apply again later on in life. So that's not an issue. But the reason why you want to have like a clean defining moment is mostly because of tax purposes, whether or not you have that obligation if you fail to file or not. It's better to be clear about that than to just let it lapse, and then there's a question of what date did that happen. So let's see. Let's one other thing I want to mention is that if you are gone for more than one entire year, you're a legal permanent resident, and you come back and you're like, okay, now I'm going to stay put and apply for naturalization as soon as I can. You still, if you're not married to a US citizen and living with a US citizen, you have to wait 4 years and a day to protect that you broke your continuous residence, and the way to overcome it is you have to come back for 4 years and a day before you can apply for naturalization. And if you are married to a US citizen and living with one, then you have to wait 2 years and a day. So just keep that in mind, because if you go abroad a long time and you're gone for more than 1 year, even if you have a reentry permit, you're going to have to come back and stay put and wait a while. And I've had so many consults where people are like, I'm about to leave, but I'm still close to naturalizing. Can we make it work? Well, it gets really tough because it can take a while to get the interview for naturalization, and you might be really more living abroad than just temporarily working abroad. And so we have to look at the dates and the times and see how that's possible. Okay, so we're getting towards the end, and then I'll answer some of your questions then. But legal permanent residents who, due to travel restrictions, health concerns, have unexpected found themselves outside for longer than anticipated, where they could lose the legal permanent resident status. This is sort of what we see now. We've seen leniency. We've heard, and I've heard of forums, I've heard from my own clients, people being able to get in after even 1.5 years without a reentry permit. But what I would say is certain ports of entry are a little bit more friendlier than others. And also, I think if you could show that you came in as early as you possibly could, is better. And you can be armed with the idea, the data of, well, the country I was in didn't allow travel until this day. And by the time I could get everything organized, I got here as soon as I could, or whatever that information is. But just good news is that we've seen people be able to get in even beyond 1.5 years being out of the country. And I think where you're going to get tough is after close to 2 year mark. Honestly, you don't want to push it because they could detain you. They could try to get you on the next, if you renounce it at the airport, then they'll try to get you to fly back, or you could be put in immigration court. So other concerns we've seen are when legal permanent residents have been away from the U.S. due to frequent travel and ability to return, establishing that physical presence. In some cases, residents can be a challenge in context of applying, which is what I was mentioning. So you would need to really keep track of those dates and times. And then, basically your magic numbers are 6 months and a year. You want to come back under being gone. You don't want to be gone for more than 6 months, because you have to check that on the naturalization. Also, they could presume you abandoning, but also the 1 year that cuts off your continuous residence. We found things like the spouse who are living abroad, following a citizen spouse's company. They could be eligible for, depending on the company, for rapid expedited naturalization. So in those cases, you want to file those. which is what we were talking about. And, so we've also seen some other things where people were applying for the SB1, which in practice, I think there's a question about that. We haven't seen a lot of success, but I think we might be seeing more because of the situation of people being more sympathetic, the consulates being more sympathetic about the reasons why people have been abroad. And we also recently saw something where a legal permanent resident had left the US and gone abroad, and they didn't have proof of their legal permanent residency because it was lost in the mail, what have you. And now they're trying to come back in. There's something called a boarding foil, and you can apply with the consulate to get that appointment, to get proof, to get that one-time entry into the United States. There's also, maybe your green card expired while you were outside and you need to renew it. But then you also need to be able to get back in, and you can file your I-90 online and get the receipt generally within about a day. And then go to the embassy consulate and either work with getting like a boarding foil or the SB1 visa to be able to get back in. Because really what it comes down to a lot is the airlines. If the immigration control and the airlines don't think you have the proper documents, they will do everything in their power to not let you get on because they'll have to pay to return you. And so those are some of the concerns. Okay, so Tina, I think it's time for me to take a breath for a second here. These are a drink of coffee. Why don't you read the first question, and let's start answering people's questions.
Awesome. Thank you guys for all your questions here. I'm going to go ahead and start.
Can I say something? One second. I'm wearing my law practice, my Ruby, the Powers Law Group shirt, and I'm drinking from the Powers, well, you can't see it, okay, mug, and I'm actually at the office, which you can't see, but like I haven't actually been in the office for like almost 13 months. So
we're totally on brand today, guys.
Totally on brand. Watch out. Yeah. Okay, one second. You can see I'm actually here.
Awesome.
Anyway.
So yeah, guys, we're on brand today. So keep an eye out for that. We're trying our hardest, trying to get back into the groove of going back to the office after years of, this whole year of remote working. So we're going to go ahead and start with the first question. My grandfather has been outside of the US for 7 years now, but still holds a valid green card. He never had the intention to leave for the US that long, but due to his sick wife and his son passing away, he hasn't been able to return. Now my father wants to bring him back. How should we go about doing this? What do you have to say about the SB1 returning resident visa?
So my understanding is that maybe you could use that for up to one, maybe 2 years, like the pre-COVID, but I don't think it'll slide for 7 years. I think that you can have a one-on-one consult, but I don't really think that's going to work for SB1 for that long. I think your better chances is if the grandfather has a US citizen child, to just go ahead and readjust, because just because that green card on the face of it is valid, if this is considered abandonment, and this is a type where you don't have a defined date, it's not officially obvious what date it happened, but I don't think the SB1 will work. You can always reach out to the consulate, but I don't think that's going to work. I think that's been too long. And while we're on the topic, like, and I feel like I say this in every consult that's somewhere along these lines, is that I really think USCIS needs to come out with some more guidance. American Immigration Lawyers Association came out with like a little memo, which we're talking about today. We're bringing a lot of that information, but USCIS, it would be really helpful if there was a little, and I mean more Department of State, um, if there was more of a more and CBP, if there was a little bit more of a sort of a unified, like it's okay for you to be gone this much time, but anything beyond that, it's not okay. Like under the 2020, 2021, years, just because of COVID and unprecedented situation. It would be amazing if that guidance would come out, so then I could just say, let's read that and we're good. But because it hasn't, that's why we're doing this webinar, and we're trying to do the best we can to help answer you. So I think the next question is more related to asylum. It is not related to this particular situation, but asylum, just for a side note, asylums are taking a long time affirmatively and in court. And so, but if you're not a legal permanent resident yet, then this webinar is not really applicable to your situation. But your other question about, is it possible to change status from asylum to marriage? Yes, it is. And if you just want to have a consultation on that particular thing, we can go ahead and talk about that. We've helped a client with that situation specifically.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Ruby. We're going to go ahead and answer the other question. Hi, if one surrenders the green card, can the person still get a visitor visa, or would having had the green card earlier cause issues getting the visitor visa?
So that's another reason why you want to be clear about the surrendering the green card, because yes, you can. The answer is yes. If you surrender it, you can apply for a visitor visa. You just need to make sure that you qualify for whatever that is, that you don't have immigrant intent. And, the biggest inadmissibility issue about having a green card and renouncing surrendering it is that it wasn't for tax purposes, because if you say that, if you indicate that, then that will be an inadmissibility. But anyway, long story short, if you surrender it and there's like a clear paper trail of that, you can apply for a tourist visa, but you have to qualify like on that merit, your merits alone, on what the requirements are, which is that you do not have immigrant intent. So that's the answer to that question. And just like I had said, like there's people who had a green card, they surrendered it, and then later on they got a tourist visa, and then like later on they decided to go for the green card. So you can do all those different things. You just want to do it in a clean, documented manner. So I think the other question might have been for the person who had abandoned the green card. You would just file. You would just sort of say, like, if there's a clear date, you would say, on this date we surrendered the green card and now I'm applying for a new one. Or if it's not clear what that date is, then you can just say, like, around this time we believe that my green card was abandoned, and so now we're applying again. But like, I've been practicing long enough to see this at least, I think, 4 or 5 times. Like at first I thought it was sort of a unique situation that somebody would surrender it or abandon it and then apply again. But I've actually seen it multiple times. So it happens.
So we had another question here.
Yeah.
It said, what to file for readjustment of status? I asked if you could clarify a bit further, but maybe Attorney Powers, you might be able to answer that a little bit.
Oh, okay. Well, I think if someone's like, well, how do you do that? You just do it like you would do the first green card. So like if it's an adjustment and you're in the US and you entered legally, you have or paroled, then you would do the whole thing in the US, or if it was consular processing. So it's like you do it all over again. The way and maybe right. Okay. So you're mentioning the clarification, right? And that's what I thought. So for the grandfather scenario, 7 years, long time, I believe that would be deemed abandoned. And so, hopefully he has a US citizen who's 21, son or spouse who's can petition for him, or he would have to do it the other ways, like through employment or what have you. So I think that answers that question. But thank you all who watched us, and we wanted to give you some brief nuggets of information. So Dana, how can they learn more about us and what's coming up in the next weeks?
Of course. So again, like Attorney Power said, we're always very happy to have you guys on our webinars and ask us any questions. And again, if you guys have any topics that you all would like to hear our attorneys discuss on, we would be we're always so welcome to do those. And again, if you want to keep up to date with any of our any news, or we always post on our social medias about what's most pressing right now in the media in regards to immigration, trending news as well. We always host these Friday weekly webinars along with our Tuesday Power Hours, where we go over immigration news that have been currently going on in the media that may affect, our clients, or just some interesting information that we would like to share with you all. And again, if you have missed one of our webinars in the past, you can find them on Facebook, on YouTube, and we can also send them to you if you just cannot find them. Also, we send out a newsletter bi-weekly that we are very proud of. It's constructed of a bunch of information that we think is very important and relatable to our clients, and we would suggest you guys subscribe to it. It goes out bi-weekly, so it's filled, jam-packed with info. You guys can hold your phone up and scan that little QR code that you all see here. Go to your camera, hold it there, and it'll lead you to a little website that you can input your information and subscribe. So next week, we're going to be having a webinar on asylum, the best practices for an affirmative asylum. So I know we had a question about asylum. So if you'd like to
that could be just the affirmative interview. So not court, but you could still learn something from it. But it'll be best practices for the affirmative asylum interview. I went to, I think, 2 last month, and Cynthia, Attorney Millian, went to 1. And then I have another one in about a week, and she does as well. So we it's fresh on our mind, and we wanted to bring you some of those tidbits, whether you're our client or not, just so you can know what to expect.
Yep, and I'm going to go ahead and add the link if you guys would like to register for that here on our chat. So feel free to register to that if you guys would like. And we also, I don't know if you guys are interested, but on the 30th, we'll also have another topic on 1 second. It's going to be
national interest waivers.
Yeah, the natural interest waiver. The title is going to be the roadmap to a successful national interest waiver petition. So if you guys are
a self-petitioned situation, so that's something you want to keep in mind for the future. And we haven't set up our May. Did we set up our May ones? I don't know. I feel like we sort of did, but I don't remember. But if you have something you really want us to talk about, just email us at contact@rubypowerslaw, and we will accommodate you. If we think that's a hot topic, we will go ahead and do it. So thanks so much for watching, and I think that's it. Let us know if you have any questions. Feel free to give us a call to have a one-on-one consultation.
Yep, that'll be it. I just went ahead and added the other Zoom link for the national interest waiver. If you guys would like to register to that, I'm going to give you guys a couple of seconds just to be able to get that link. But we will also be posting it on our Facebook and on all of our social media. So thank you all again for joining us today, and we hope to see you all on our Tuesday Power